Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we're talking about the second in Small Acts, the Steve McQueen anthology series about black life in Britain. This one's called Lovers Rock. It's shorter than Mangrove was, as I think they all are. So if Mangrove was 2 hours, this is an hour and 8 minutes. Which, as we were discussing just now, is still feature length. I looked up, what actually counts as feature length, and according to the BFI and the American Motion Pictures Academy, it's 40 minutes qualifies, which I think we would all consider pretty short. So I think there's a colloquial definition to feature film that kind of goes along with what we consider feature film. But this is something you could show in a cinema. Yes. And I think it was. I mean, these films were premiered at Tribeca, I think.
Yes.
So you could...
In New York.
So you could see this in the cinema. This is a really, I think, this is a sensual experience, and it's... Steve McQueen, I think we've talked before about, he has so much care over his images, and his images are so expressive, but this has a different quality to it than his previous films, I think, and Mangrove.
It's very sensuous, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we were talking before about the televisual and, the cinematic and whatever. So whereas in the previous one, I welcomed kind of what I think television brought to the drama, so to speak, yeah?
In that it invited it to be more explicit and accessible.
More melodramatic, more accessible, more exposition, and so on. This, I really wish I'd seen it on a big screen, because, just that swaying of motion, that you get, I really would have liked to have been enveloped in it, yeah? I mean, I was already enveloped in it, to be honest. I mean, I thought it was ravishing to watch on, my television screen.
I lost track of time. I mean, so we just briefly say what it is, and it's a much simpler thing than Mangrove was. It's a house party.
Yes.
Actually, it's a birthday party. You find out at a certain point in it. The girl in the red dress, it's her birthday, and it's a house party in London. And the film spends a lot of time just showing you dancing. The camera moves through the dance floor. There are slow songs. There are energetic songs. You meet a couple of characters. You get to know people. So you meet Patty and Marta, the two girls, and then Franklin and his friend, who they get involved with or try to pull them and so on. And you see characters who recur throughout the film, and you move in and out of different rooms, different relationships, but it all comes back to the dance floor that night, and you just spend so much time there. And like I say, I lost track of time because I was sort of thinking, I can't remember which song it was, but you're in your fourth or fifth sort of experience on the dance floor, and I'm going, I have no idea how much time is left in this film. Really. And actually it turned out to be quite early on. There was a lot left. I thought it could be 10 minutes from the end. I have no idea. And I got completely enveloped in it. Completely.
Yes, I did as well. I thought it was wonderful. It's almost like a different or new kind of musical, because actually I would say 90% of the film is watching people dance, really. Yeah. Or watching people on the dance floor. And it's so interestingly filmed. So initially I remember being struck because he's almost just filming hands and shoulders. So not faces, not buttocks or legs, or kind of, I think the
it's about the girls embracing the guys and with their hands over their shoulders.
Yeah, and you see their fingernails and everything. So, for a long time, I mean, kind of that's just kind of, what you see. And then, of course, the film has a rhythm and a pattern that I haven't quite worked out yet. But at a certain point, so they do kung fu fighting, and then you see their, at least from their torsos upwards, kind of a great attention to the hands, all doing kung fu fighting. And then there was that song, which is just brilliant, and which I now can't remember, where
Silly Games,
yeah. And there you're really kind of feeling the heat. Yeah, it's
properly
kind of
erotic.
Yeah, it's like a sexual heat. And you get this kind of lazy but persistent kind of bumping and grinding, and then it's fantastic because at a certain point the song ends, and the dancers begin to sing it. It's like they don't want to get rid of the emotion, or of the feeling, so they continue singing it, and not just like for 10 seconds, but almost like, for another, long time, right? And actually that is just so joyous.
And they all try and hit the high note.
Yeah.
Including the guys who haven't got hope in hell.
I know. It's just, it really is, I think,
Every I haven't been to a black party, I suppose, but every kind of experience I've had at a party comes up in this film. It's really authentically observed.
Yes.
It's
very narratively clever as well. So, because I think it is a house party in which somebody announces their birthday later. So, but yeah, it's clearly a house party. And you begin to see the setup, right? So there are women cooking and, they're doing the curries and, they're setting up the music box and they're removing the furniture
and the women
the carpets.
sing City Game to the start, don't they?
And then, there are all kinds of interesting threads, So there are like some white skinheads looking menacingly outside. There's a little tiny bit of a potential incident that doesn't develop into one. But actually that overhangs, doesn't it? And then also there's a MacGuffin in it. Paddy leaves the party a third of the way through, I would say.
Maybe not even that.
Yeah.
It's early on, yeah.
And for the rest of the time you wonder what's happened to her.
Yeah, because Martha sees her leave, goes out after her, but doesn't see her.
Martha sees her leave, goes after her. Then these white skinheads approach her menacingly. She's basically rescued by
the bouncer.
So from that moment on, the combination of Paddy leaving into the night and her friend experiencing this threat combine into just a feeling of dread about... Yeah, and actually it's one that the film doesn't resolve because, you afterwards don't know what's happened to Paddy. For all you know, she's in church. Yeah, she's gone home and is on her way to church like her friend. But actually that overhang, you keep thinking about her as the film unfolds. And then, of course, there is the sexual kind of innuendo with... with some of it is really sexual violence. There's a rape in the middle of it.
Yeah, or attempted rape.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rape. Yeah, kind of. It's more than attempted. It's halfway through as Paddy comes into the garden and basically the rape saves her, right? So, so yeah, that sense of sexual danger and pervades really. So all of this stuff is going on, as like the music plays and people are swaying and, you're caught up in feeling really, like there's no other way of putting it. Like, it's really the rhythms and the colors and, I think some of it is made into slow motion because, you feel like almost like a kind of a palpitation in the image really. It's just beautiful.
Made me think of, If Beale Street Could Talk. In the sense we got in that film of it being all too rare that you get to see so much joy in a film about black experience or black lives.
Yes.
So often they focus on the struggles and the harshnesses, and obviously those are all true.
They're there.
And they appear in here to some degree as well. But that was a film that was about romance and beauty and the joy. Actually, I think Mangrove had some of that as well. You got the sense all the way through of the joy of these people's lives, and they keep themselves together and through the humour and so on. But here it's through the dancing, it's through the eroticism.
Yes.
And it really is properly erotic. I mean, really, as you say, that there is this wonderful eye that the film has for body parts and movement and their interactions. So it starts off with the hands, as you say, and that has a real erotism to it. I think the way the women, kind of cling on to the guys, and then it moves down to buttocks and groins grinding against each other, and they really are grinding against each other, as you say. But as you say, it has that kind of that laziness to it. Like it's not an aggressive, sort of thing, but it's there completely.
Yes,
and it just takes its time. In fact, it was interesting because I thought we talked about how Mangrove had space to take its time with shots, especially with shots lingering. And I thought the other things probably aren't going to be like this, being shorter. But actually, this film takes lots of space, takes its time, which I think probably speaks then to the economy of the story as a whole, because it is kind of, as a plot, it's kind of threadbare. It leaves things unresolved. It's just kind of sketches in a sense. But it's because it's letting itself fill everything in with all of this time spent on the dance floor.
To be honest, I think it's almost like a work of genius, really, because you see, it's 68 minutes. It's not, again, like the other one, it doesn't have a protagonist, really. Yeah, like, I mean, it kind of does.
I would say Martha is pretty much the protagonist.
Except there's all these other characters.
Yeah, sure.
And there's all these other stories that are being told.
Yeah.
You know, alongside hers. So, you know, it is, I think, a multi-protagonist film. Yeah. You can distinguish, between a lot of people in the story. And they each almost have like a story to tell. So I thought, that was amazing. I thought also the way that it brings in so many elements, right? So it's about young people, right? And it's about young people going out, right? And so you have the girls, and then you have the boys dancing at the end in what is like almost like a macho ritual, a completely different kind of dance, with a completely different kind of energy and, Ja Rule or whatever. So, and it has all of these different kinds of threats. It has a threat, from aggressive males to, kind of vulnerable black women, right? Like, I mean, one of the guys says, so what, how many beatings is it going to take for you and your mother to walk out on your dad or something, right? Like kind of, that's not what the story's about. It's just there, as is so many other things. So you get the feeling, of a group of people, and all of these things that kind of constitute a world around what is just a night out.
What did you make of the Christian symbolism? There's crosses all over the shop.
Yes.
And non-accidentally, they're showing up. The cousin who comes in, who's clearly kind of troubled, and then when he gets onto the dance floor, he's kind of wild and crazy, and actually a guy gives him a spliff to calm him down. He talks about, he's lost his mum, and he says, she just gave me this cross, that's the only thing she left me with. There's crosses on the walls when the girl who has been assaulted by the guy is sort of upstairs being comforted. There's a cross on the wall behind her.
Yes.
Cross on the wall over the bed of Martha when she comes home.
Yes.
And when she gets on the bus in the morning, the guy's getting off with a huge cross.
Yes.
That he folds out, and also it's the morning of church. So this is a motif.
Yes. I don't understand it. I mean, no. I know it's there, and maybe all it's signifying is, there's a night of dancing, and the next morning it's church, right? So, and it's obviously like a Christian community, and one that believes, and one in which, that sexuality and the night out and so on is not in contradiction with religion the way that it would be, in other Calvinist or more American, style Pentecostals or whatever, which are, anti-dancing or anti-music or whatever. I mean, here, the dancing and the sex and the good time and the food coexists with being a Christian. You're not denying yourself pleasure. Christianity is not about denying yourself pleasure. But other than that, I don't know if it means something else. I mean, when the protagonist comes in at the end, you see this wonderful shot of a shadow, over being projected, and there's a cross there, right, in the center of it, and and so it's a cross and a shadow, and then I think the wallpaper is flowers or something.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a kind of well, it's I was going to say colorful, but it's muted colors. Yeah, but it's almost like small flowers or something. So I don't know what to make of that, except that it's there. It's overhangs. Yeah,
I kind of feel the same way. I was thinking the whole time about kind of like these are the kind of parties where people meet and they get together with someone who they may be with for the rest of their life, and there's a kind of, I think the sort of Christian symbolism speaks to the community kind of feel of that, and the kind of the sense of like there are so many people in your community, and this is where you pair up, and there seemed to be, it felt like there was something connected about that, about them being connected under the church as well.
Except
because everyone goes to church to wake up. It's time for church. Is the last line of the film.
Yes. Except that the film also shows you a diversity within that, right? Like, so you see all those Rastas, that are there as well. And then you also see Muslims, kind of, the women all covered up, with her glasses, kind of also dancing, towards the end of the party. She's with a tall bouncer. So I'm not sure what to make of that.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I made the same observation when we saw Queen and Slim, that the Slim character was a Christian and he had the cross, and there was Christian symbolism that popped up in that film. And again, I kind of said, I suppose it's something that I don't exactly know how to make anything of, but it is there, and it seems to be important in black culture in a way that's different to white cultures.
I don't know. So it depends, like, what cultures were. I mean, I would imagine, the church would be absolutely central to, like, white rural cultures in America or whatever. So I don't know.
And that was set in America. This is set in Britain, and that's obviously a difference.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of it, but to be honest, I also didn't find it the most interesting thing. So, when we finished watching it, my first impulse is, oh my God, I want to watch it again. And part of the reason why I wanted to watch it again was because I wanted to know how the movement and the images and the editing, work together with the music. Like, it has a rhythm, and the whole thing is clearly, based on rhythms, really. So, my main interest was that, how, because it's such an incredible achievement, I think, in almost like pure cinema. It's kind of, it's about sounds and images and textures and editing, that, convey these feelings to you, really, because, I mean, often what you're seeing is something that is almost abstract, that it's disembodied, right? I mean, these headless, legless pieces of clothing swaying with maybe a hand, that you see, right? Or subsequently, just like you're seeing torso, you're seeing crotches, like, and then it moves up or it moves down. But it's almost again that you what you're watching. I mean, you could almost choose to watch it abstractly, right? Because also these are encased in late 70s or early 80s. I mean, I heard someone mention that it was set in 1980,
right?
Which would,
Or it makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah, we were saying late 70s, early 80s. So, the texture of those clothes, kind of that cloth. It has a particular, So to watch them moving, there's something kind of abstract about that, and and beautiful, really. I think. Yeah, and then of course you move and you see faces and so on. But it's extraordinary how often, what you're seeing is almost an abstraction, or kind of something that becomes disembodied from the larger thing in motion, and to music.
Yeah.
I found that really fascinating. So the religious aspect is not the first thing that would have.
No, it wasn't the first thing, but I noticed that, and I think I noticed it because of the fact that it sits there waiting to be looked at. Yes. And I don't have a grip on it,
No, I don't either. Actually, I don't understand quite what role that plays in the narrative. That might be something to look for again.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe people who are listening will have ideas and kind of suggest them to us. I thought your observation about, identity and how, towards the end, when the couple ends up at the garage and the boss walks in, and all of a sudden the guy has a Cockney accent rather than a West Indian accent. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so the guy that she's been getting off with the whole film, who's been trying to pull her in, is West Indian, as far as I know. Whereas she was born in this country, she tells him, grew up here, you can hear it in her accent, she's a Cockney, which is Londoner. So they leave the party, having spent the party together, and in the morning, or I suppose, early morning, isn't it? They go to the garage where he obviously works, and the boss comes in, is a white fella, and basically tells him off. Yes. For taking a girl. They said that this ain't the place. But I noticed and went back and checked after we watched it that he is no longer a West Indian at that point. He's got a fairly broad London accent, so he's obviously making one of them up. And because the thing is, it's interesting that Marta, slips into a West Indian accent a lot throughout the film, and I think it's kind of like Like you hear it in like Lenny Henry, or you also hear it in people from India, or rather children of people from India who have been born in this country and grew up in this country, but slip into their parents' accents. You know, when they're doing impressions of them, that sort of thing. Lenny Henry does it a lot, and you hear it from for people from Asia as well, quite a bit. And like it's obviously a thing that you get kind of good at, right? You're doing impressions of your parents, sort of, disciplining you or whatever. And that's what she's doing here. So there are a lot of West Indians around as well as people from England. And she's slipping back and forth between accents, and you don't get the sense that she's like... Well, she is kind of lightly mocking it sometimes, you get the sense. You know, she's kind of lightly mocking, picking up on the guy's accent and talking back to him in kind of patois. But yeah, it's just quite a surprise when you get to the garage and the boss shows up and all of a sudden he's talking with a London accent. Because obviously that's not that's not how he speaks to his boss. And I mean, I got the sense that that is his real accent then, and he's putting it on all night, and that's where he gets to put it on all night. You know,
or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you've got to sound that way to be able to survive in London.
It's possible.
Because, kind of, it definitely adds another layer of foreignness and indeed incomprehension.
Yeah. I was surprised that at no point in Mangrove did the judges or the barristers make any comment about being not able to understand the defendants when they were talking. I thought that had to come up at some point, but it didn't.
Yes. I had trouble understanding some of it. I must say, I did feel at some moments that I wish I'd put on the subtitles. And particularly when the cousin comes in and she asks about his mother and says she's dead, and the one who says the cross is the only thing I have left. There is some conversation there about why she didn't go visit. Their cousin, she didn't go visit his mother. The father wouldn't let her, was something I kind of gathered. But why? So again, it might tie into questions of religion. And what the guy's mother did or whatever, I don't know. But there's something suggested there that I didn't quite grasp.
Yeah, no, I lost a line or two in the speed of the dialogue or whatever, but, I was cool with it.
Yes. Well, as I said, I think this is like a major, major work,
Yeah. I really like the bouncer character. There's a moment of his that I loved, which is where you've seen him protecting the party, and he's protected Marta when she goes out, and those white guys are lining up to attack her basically, and then he comes out and they're like, no, leave it, because he's giant, and just as well, even though they're not attacking the party, they're not going to go anywhere near him. And then the cousin comes in, and he's very threatening to the cousin, and saying, you don't cause a fucking mess here, or what have you. He says, me and you, and he kind of barks at him, which is great. And then the cousin gets into it with Marta, and when he pushes her, he stabs her with his finger in her chest, and there's a cutaway to him getting up, like pushing his chair away, and the girl next to him just goes, no. But it's this moment where it's like he is fucking on it, and I love that set, like why he's doing what a bouncer does, he's doing his job, but like he's, because you haven't looked at him basically since he let the cousin go, and then the cousin got into it with Marta, so, but he's been there the whole time paying attention, waiting for the moment. I don't know, I like that moment. Again, it felt like authentically observed, like I've seen that guy, Every kind of experience I've had at a party is in here somewhere. That feeling of paranoia, when you don't know anyone there, or you're trying to move your way around, you don't even know where you are. It has that feeling of, I really hate this and I'm going to go home. I've had that, and that's in here. The feeling of getting lost on the dance floor in your own movements. I've had that. The feeling of getting lost in someone else.
The waiting for the toilet.
More familiar for women now then. But yeah.
Anyway, I think it's an extraordinary achievement. It's amazing, and I would love to see it again. Actually, I think it's also, what's the word? I was going to say radical. It's not radical, but I think this film, formally and stylistically, would have seemed new and strange and on a big screen. And I think it's all the more amazing, really, for me to see it on a small screen, in the sense that, I think it's quite radical in a way, to have 68 minutes of which, 60 are dancing. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I was kind of thinking, we've said, wouldn't it be great to see it on a big screen? But actually, thinking about it specifically, not just on a small screen, but as television, like I said before with Mangrove, the idea of it being piped into people's homes. How do you think it plays to an audience that may be just really not expecting a film of this form?
Well, I mean, obviously it's playing very well, but I just think it's kind of like a radical thing to do.
I mean, I think it's easy to imagine people switching off.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Which is not a criticism of the film as much as, and it's not even actually that much of a criticism of the people, but it's just like there is something less fitting about this on television than.
I'm not sure. I mean, we were gripped, so why wouldn't other people be? I personally would like to have seen it on a big screen because I want that experience of being even more enveloped in it, right? I mean, we were completely absorbed in it as is, right? But I just think, seeing it on a big screen would have made it even better for me.
No, I appreciate that. But I guess, I mean, kind of, not everyone is into film like we are. A lot of people, and so you imagine a lot of people going, "What's this? There's no story." Turning it off.
Maybe. But I mean, why should
which
people...
is why, but I think that just makes it more daring to put on TV. I think that's really impressive that it has made it on TV. I think that's a great thing. Actually, this is the kind of thing that kind of channels should be funding.
Well, absolutely. But also, I mean, kind of, let's not get egotistical here. I mean, we found it absorbing. Why wouldn't other people? And, the reviews have been fantastic. I mean, I'd be curious to know the viewing figures. I mean, I do think this isn't publicized enough. So we'll see how many people actually do tune in and, whether it's a success. I mean, I hope it's a success. It deserves to be a success. And whether it is or not, particularly this episode, would be interesting to find out. I mean...
Yeah. I don't think it's an ego thing. I mean, it's easy for it to sound like an ego thing. And I was aware of it possibly sounding like that. Like, I like this because I'm smart and other people just would turn off. That's not what I mean. But I mean, like, this is something that I think would be easy to turn viewers off because it doesn't have some of the obvious ways to grip people.
I think you're underestimating the power of the music and the power of nostalgia, right? Kind of, this is the music that people my age and younger, would have listened to, would be familiar with. There's a nostalgic appeal to all of that, right? And then there's the power of the music itself, right? I mean, if people watch endless episodes of, music videos on Top of the Pops and stuff like that, why wouldn't they watch this?
That's fair.
All right, so highly recommend you see it.
Looking forward to seeing the rest of the series.
Thank you very much for listening. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you.
Cheerio.